All right, so next we'll be introducing our next speaker. I'm so excited to introduce Karan Jalanje. He is the founder and director at Activate the City, and they would let you know so much more about that than I can possibly tell you. I'll be adding them right now.
Hello, can you see me and can you hear me?
Yes, I can see you and I can hear you.
Amazing. Hi everyone, it's so good to I can see people's names and some places where people are tuning in from. My name is Karan Jalenji. I don't know if you've got my name up, but I'm currently in London at the moment, and outside there's a bit of sunshine, but I'm not going to lie, it's pretty cold where I am. So as much as I'm not enjoying the winter, I'm loving seeing the seasons change. But thank you so much for having me at Youth STEM Summit. I'm really excited to share my story with you all. And this presentation is all about how to come up with ideas if you've got a world-changing idea, and how to go about the process of getting funding. So I'll talk a bit about like what I do, my background, why I set up Activate the City and how I went about it, and like where I am in my journey, because it's been 2 years, but it feels like it's been 5. I've learned so much. So bear with me whilst I try and share my screen. Hopefully that's going to work. Let's see how we do this. Okay, yes, I think this is going to work, hopefully. There we go. Okay, can you see that?
Yes, I can see it. Okay, great.
Okay, so as I mentioned, I can't see you all, so I'm just going to wing this and go for it. So today's all about, I'm going to just chat through for about 20 minutes about how to fund your world-changing idea. A little bit about me and my story so far. So as I said, my name's Karan. I'm based in London, but I was born in the UK and then went back to Malawi, which is I really consider my second home, but home as well. And came back to the UK when I was 6 years old. So the places that I've known is Malawi and the UK. And yeah, my background's in architecture and design. So I studied architecture for my undergraduate studies. And then I went into different job roles, into project management, working in housing. But I think I've always been passionate about design and art and how that can be a tool for social change. And one thing that I did whilst I was studying is that I did a lot of work in going to schools and teaching young people about like architecture and what it was, because I did not know what architecture was before I went into it. So I thought it was important to give back and speak to young people. And I think what I found was that young people were really good at coming up with ideas for things, but not necessarily having the resources to bring those ideas to life. And that's something that stuck with me for a couple of years whilst I was working. So yeah, I graduated in 2012, but it took me another 7 years to set up Activate the City. So we're a creative organisation that works with young people to design and use creativity as a tool for social change. And what does that look like for us? And for us, it's really about how I really believe that knowledge is power. So it's like, how can you equip young people with the knowledge and confidence in their ideas or changing their community, and try and bring some of these things to life. So we run workshops and educational programs outside of school settings, and we primarily work with the ages between 14 to 25, but it could be more than 25 years of age. And we're really about demonstrating the power of young people and how they can create or change spaces. So it could be a space in their local community, or it could be them organising like a community event and bringing it to life. So most of our programs run through like the school holidays and summers, but at each stage we try and have an outcome for the young person, whether they get more confident in delivering a whole project and working in a team. But it's all about how we get young people sort of confident for their futures, and also able to show that, you know, they're capable of so much, which you all are. So these are some of the examples of projects that I ran. I'm not really going to go into too much detail, but as I said, my sort of passion is art and design, and hopefully you can tell from some of these images, you know, that's come through. So I'm going to start and talk a bit about what makes a good idea. And I think I will like reference like how I came up with my ideas. I spoke a bit about my own personal experience, and I think a lot of ideas come from your personal experiences or things that have happened that you want to change. So when you're coming up with an idea, some of the tips is starting really with a problem and thinking about what problem do you want to solve. Like, what do you see around you in your local area? What concerns you? And also thinking about why. Like, why does it concern you? And also thinking about why does it concern others? And I think there's so many problems in the world, and it's really hard to start with one, but think about the ones that's closest to you. And the next thing is really thinking about what are the potential solutions. And I think I started like by brainstorming, and that's really like literally writing things down. And thinking about the problems and trying to find links as well. And one thing I've said as a tip is that you might need to talk to people to validate whether, what your solution that you propose is actually potentially, but even before you think of solutions, it's just talking to people around you about what these problems are. And one thing that I've learned during the whole journey is that problems don't have to start from something from scratch. You don't have to create an idea that's new. There's a lot of existing things that are out there, like products, and it's like, how do you improve the experience, or how do you make it better? Because things do have flaws. So I think one thing is also to think about what's already out there. And going back to it as well is like thinking about the why and like what your passion is, what is your mission in life, always having that to hand as well. So I'm going to give you an example and run through, like, when I was thinking about Activate the City, what was I thinking of? So one of the problems I identified was that even from the young people I was speaking to, or in the set areas that I worked in, working for like the government and working in housing, is that there wasn't a lot of young people represented in decision-making roles, and there was a lot of lack of influence in how they can shape their local areas. I've gone through school and I think not much has changed. In terms of thinking about teaching creative skills or design, there's a lot of focus on exams. And I think design and creativity can be a really powerful tool, especially as a young person. Is that I find a lot of young people have a lot of creativity and imagination, which kind of, as you grow older, gets lost. And I think that because of that, I think young people are less, they want to like change the world, but they don't necessarily have the skills or feel like they have the skills or confidence to do that. So that was one of the things I thought about. And the other thing that I thought about as well is, even now, like since the pandemic, I know it's been pretty terrible for people in the younger demographic, because there's not that many opportunities, and there's a huge surge of unemployment. So I thought, like, what can I do to kind of contribute to solving some of these issues? And what some of the solutions were, like, how can you teach young people how to use creative problem solving skills, which is something that's really needed in the world of work as well. How can we get young people involved in real life projects? So one problem that I found when I was studying architecture is that I'd be designing concepts, and it's like, you're imagining it. I think the process of going through design is amazing, and you create something, but you're not really bringing it to life until, you finish your studies and maybe go into the job. So I think it'd be really exciting to see how we can get young people involved in delivering projects, from like coming up with the idea and actually seeing it through. And I think one of the outcomes, thinking about the outcomes as well, of like what impacts can your idea have, and some of the things is like, from the projects that we've done recently around, like, we've done stuff about climate change, where we ran a climate lab for summer. It's like hearing that young people's confidence was improved, and them actually wanting to feel like they can contribute to their local community. So that empowerment is really important for me, because I think as you go older, you need to have people kind of like pushing you and celebrating who you are, so that you continue to kind of thrive. And the last thing is really thinking about developing employability skills. And I think one thing that really makes me angry as somebody who's gone through uni and graduated, and you're trying to get your first job, is like, what experience do you have? And it's like, I'm just starting out. So like, what I really want to do is create an opportunity for young people to showcase the projects that they're doing and say, look, I created an event, worked in a team, and they're able to demonstrate and show potential employers like what skills they've developed from doing the work or being involved in a project that we've ran. So hopefully you're still with me. So next we're going to talk about how to get funding or help. And this is really at the early stage. So I started Activate the City 2 years ago. And when I started, I think I was quite naive. You have a lot of enthusiasm. You're like, yes, I've got an idea. And I think what I really learned during even the first year, it was quite hard, because you're like, oh, you got this idea, what do you do? And you kind of don't really speak about it. You're kind of I was a bit like, people are going to think, what's she talking about? She doesn't know what she's talking about. But I think one of the things that I've really learned along the way is like talking about your work. It really shows that you're passionate and proud about the work that you're doing. And I think the great thing about the internet now is that there's so many social media channels. And I think that's a really great way to get traction. And that doesn't cost money. You just talk to somebody, someone might spread the word. And I've had conversations with people who've been like, I'm really interested in what you're doing. And they've reached out and said, can I help you? It doesn't necessarily mean like money, but help in terms of resource and advice. And the other thing is grants and pitching competitions. There's a lot of grants out there that you don't have to pay back or go to like pitching competitions. Like one thing that I did once, I think I went to an event and somebody was like, do you have a business that you want to talk about? And I was really scared. And my friend was there and she was like, you know what, Karen, just have a go. If it goes right, it goes right. If it goes wrong, then you've learned something. And I got up for 1 minute, I was shaking. And then I was like, this is what I do. And I was like, it's not even a business yet, but this is what I'm really passionate about. And one person came up to me afterwards from Microsoft. And then they were like, we've got this space. Feel free to use it. We love what we're doing and let us know how we can support you. And I think it's really important just to be brave and just see where it takes you. And the other thing is you can do is crowdfunding, which is more like kind of an online system where you can get people to contribute to like a specific project. And I think what I'd advise in terms of crowdfunding is maybe thinking of a specific project you want to run. So if you're getting started, start with one project and think, what can I do to try and get people interested in what I'm hoping to do? And it's a really great way of like testing your ideas as well, where you're not investing so much money, but you're trying things, and that helps you guide you. So these are some of the places to look for funding. I'm not going to go through them, but hopefully you can see that. And I put LinkedIn because I think LinkedIn is a really great place to connect with employers, anyone and everyone really, like just reaching out to people and messaging them. You'd be amazed how open people are for conversations if you just pay them a compliment and say, your work's amazing. People love talking about themselves. So I think those kinds of places are a great place to start. And I'm hovering over friends and family. Is like really your friends and your family are probably the closest people that are around you. So they can be your first support. Like my brothers, I got them to invest £1, which is, I know obviously that is different currencies, but it's not a lot of money, but it's like, can you help out somehow? Every little helps. So don't forget about your friends and family because they're probably the first people that would be able to help you. Long-term options. So these are 3 options that I've looked at. I'm going to talk about in terms of long-term. And I think when I talk long-term, it's like I'm 2 years. So I'm getting to a stage now where I'm thinking, all right, like how can I create more impact? And I obviously need more funding so I can deliver more projects. So one of the areas you can look at is small business loans. I'm just going to talk quickly about the pros and cons of both, but there's a lot more, but I'm just going to point out a few things. Small business loans are usually targeted at businesses that are at early stage. The great thing is that they're low interest rates. So it means that if you borrow a certain amount of money, the payment is repayment is over extended period of time, but you're not having to pay too much interest. And as I said, they're small business friendly, and you also usually get a bit of support. So they might give you some business advisors that can help you to, grow your small business. One con is that sometimes you have to have made a bit of progress and traction. And when I say traction, is like people have started if it's like a service-based business where you're selling a service to somebody or a product, maybe you could have made a few sales. So you have to kind of demonstrate that sometimes. But that might not be an option if you haven't made any money. And for me, like my first year, I got grants, but I wasn't making any money my first year. So I think that's something that you need to be aware of, is like, how can you get to the next stage for that? Angel investors are usually business people or companies who've got money to spare, and they might come from your sector that you're working in. And they basically invest in you and your idea, and that's targeted usually at like startup stage. The great thing is that you can also get mentors from angel investors, and you can kind of create a relationship with them where they're helping you out, and they genuinely have an interest in what you're doing. Some of the cons is that they do usually want to see tangible outcomes. So if you have a limited amount of money, and it's also a limited amount of money, so sometimes angel investors aren't able to invest a huge amount, but it's kind of like limited. So I'd say when you're kind of early to the next stage, people usually go for angel investors. And then venture capitalists, can attract high investment. I think this is the stage where you're ready to go out to market and you've got like a business that is got high growth potential. So you usually have to show a lot of traction. But the great thing is that if you get invested in, it really can help you get to the next level. And also, yeah, other companies might see what other investors might see what you're doing and help your company get to the next stage where you can have an actual team and have enough money to like recruit a team. The cons is that it usually takes a lot. Sometimes they take usually equity based. So they'll take some percentage out of your the value of your company. A lot of sort of reporting against KPIs. As I said, profit driven, high growth company. So it could be quite a fast moving like kind of option for getting funding. So I'm just going to end with some top tips. And one thing to think about, as I mentioned, is the problem and potential solutions. Why you do what you do, what's your purpose in the world? Like I always have to like sometimes remind myself. I know earlier there was chat about, you know, it's a challenging road ahead. You know, I'm in 2 years in this and I've definitely come across lots of roller coaster rides where I question like, should I still be doing that? But every once now and again, I come through not opportunities, but something happens where I'm like, I'm doing it because I'm passionate about young people. Like a young person will say they enjoyed my workshop, and it's like it brings me back down to earth and makes me want to strive and continue providing more opportunities for young people, because I know it's like a really challenging time for young people, like with mental health, climate change, everything that's going on. And I was like, what can I do to contribute to hopefully empower young people to continue growing and also helping contribute to communities when they grow up. And the last thing is the power of your network. You know, it's not a mobile phone. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about the people around you. You'd be surprised to sometimes I forget how many people I've come across or chatted to. And yeah, just keep talking to people and be confident in speaking to them, because you never know who the next person who invests in you or actually later on in your journey is able to help you somehow in that journey. So thank you so much. If you have any, I know we're running out of time, so I'm not sure if you've got any questions, but please follow us at Activate the City on Instagram, or you can drop us an email at hello@activate-thecity.co.uk. And I'm on LinkedIn as well. So if you've got any questions or if there's anything that struck out to you that you're interested in kind of chatting more about, I'm always free for a chat, or send me a question and hopefully I can answer it for you. But thank you for having me in Youth STEM. It's been a pleasure to present my work to you all. And yeah, if you're on the start of your journey, just well done for starting, because it's a really hard start. There's some people who've got ideas who just, you know, hold on to them but never start. And I think the start of the journey is just beginning and seeing where it takes you. And you know, it's always going to be a learning process, and that's what life is all about. And I think yeah, that's the sort of last piece of advice I'll give you. But thank you very much. I'm going to stop sharing now and I'll listen to the other presentations coming forward. But
yeah, we do have a question for you. So Elise Monroe asks, how has COVID-19 affected your business? Since there's not much social interaction during the pandemic, how do you network now?
Yeah, that's a really great question, Elise. And hello, Elise, wherever you are. I hope you're doing well. Keeping warm as well. I think with the pandemic, obviously, like it's been 2 years now, but as soon as the pandemic hit and people were kind of going into lockdown here in like London, I was actually also, I never talked about it, but I was actually working in a job as well as doing Activate the City, so balancing both two and working from home. But I think what the pandemic taught me is having a pause and reflecting on like where I am in life and what I do. And like obviously it was challenging, a lot of businesses were affected, but for me, I was quite early in the start of my journey, so I didn't really get affected like financially because I was just starting out. But it really makes you think outside of the box. So like one thing that I did, we ran this, I don't know whether I can share my screen again, but I'm gonna just quickly go back. Yeah, so one of the things that I did was thinking about how young people were affected by COVID. So although we couldn't really communicate, like do physical projects, I created this project called Activate Your Windows. And this is one of the windows that were created where there's a lot of stuff going on in the world. So what I did was posted 40 young people pens to draw on their window to use art as like a way of like expressing how they were feeling. and a way to communicate as well. And we did a survey about like how young people were feeling during COVID and whether there's anything that we could do to help them. So I think just thinking outside of the box of the constraints of like not being able to do things in person, but how can we actually bring people together even though they're like far away. So like doing this project was really amazing. And it also gave us kind of like an opportunity to get feedback about our work so far and what we're doing. And then that helped kind of, it helped me figure out like what I was going to do next, despite the fact that, you know, COVID was there. And one of the things I gained from that was understanding that unemployment was a huge issue for young people between the ages of like 14 to 25, and made me focus more my programs on like how do we improve young people's employability skills through projects. So yeah, just to end with in terms of how it's affected me and how I can interact with people, a lot of like virtual coffees, emails, Instagram, just like messaging people. So I think it's been good for getting you to think outside the box for me. I think that's been really positive, but obviously with it has been implications of like mental health, so making sure you're just taking a break. But yeah, I hope that's helped.
Yes, I'm sure you've helped so much. Thank you for speaking here today. Now me and my fellow facilitator will go into a group activity with everyone, and if you can stay and enjoy, that'd be great. Thank you so much again. You really just killed your presentation, and I'm sure you inspired so many people in the chat. As you can see, Elise just said thank you, and we really appreciate you. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, and good luck with all your ideas, and give me a shout if you need any help with anything. I'm always around. I'm on LinkedIn. We can connect. See you later, everybody.
Yep.
Bye-bye.